A one, a two, a 1, 2, 3, 4. T to G to I to F to F. Thank God it's first.
Thank God it's first.
Thank God it's first Friday.
Hello, everybody. This is Father Luke Rowicki.
And this is Brother Andrew Torrey.
And this is Season 4 of TGIF.
F!
All right, folks. So we have some breaking news because this is also very exciting that we have reached this milestone. Not many podcasts, grassroots like ours, reach this monumental occasion of launching not the first, not the second, not the third, but season number 4. So, Brother Andrew,
baby!
What exciting announcements do we have for our faithful listeners who have been with us through thick and thin since 2000 and what, 19? Yeah?
2019. That's right. Well, Father Luke, this just came in hot off the email. Our new groundbreaking office has just been opened up in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yes.
We've never had an office before, but our Raleigh correspondent has recently moved there, and I don't know if you've talked to him recently. Can you give us the down low, as the cool cats say? What's the down low on this new development in TGIFF history?
Well, the down low is that he is low-key ecstatic about this. So actually, it's, since we're both Americans, it's funny that we haven't really had, since beginning this podcast, a stateside office, so to speak. Because
Indeed.
we were both in Rome, and then you were in Rome and I was in Mexico. And so now we've finally reached the land of the free and the home of the brave. And it actually is the Spiritual Life Center here at Cardinal Gibbons High School. Woo! Has become the hub, our North Carolina office, our national department headquarters is now here.
It's also the international hub / headquarters.
Exactly. Because pretty much anyone on this podcast will eventually come through here. Like, that's what I've been noticing. Like,
they all pass through there.
Almost half of our employees have been through already. So, very excited that, launching season 4 and we have this international presence now, both sides of the pond, as some people very wittingly call it, the Atlantic Ocean. So, beginning season 4, Brother Andrew, before we reveal the theme and the title, tell us what you've been up to in these past days in Rome.
Well, yeah, and I kind of want to go through these events in the podcast with you, but just briefly, I'll say that yesterday, or these past couple days, we've been celebrating the first legionary cardinal was created by Pope Francis on Saturday, August 27th. So it's been a big event. I was able to go to the Vatican for this ceremony. I was actually able to serve during the ceremony. I was invited along with other legionary brothers, and we were right up in the front row, close. I had to hold this tray of red cardinals hats, which are called berettas. Oh. And I held them on this metal tray, and I was there, 10 feet from the Pope. It was just really cool. And
how long was the mass?
So actually, it wasn't a mass. It's a special rite that begins with, the sign of the cross. There's a brief liturgy of the word. The Holy Father gives a reflection. And then the cardinals have to give an oath of fidelity to the Pope. And then one by one, they go and they kneel in front of the Pope. And the Pope places what's called a skull cap, a red skull cap, and then a beretta, which is it's like a square hat that has like 3 things sticking out of it, which is points, which are kind of like it's a symbol of the Trinity, of the Holy Trinity.
Okay. And why red? Why red?
Well, because red is the color of blood, and these men are supposed to give their lives for the church, right? So it's the passion, and it's also the color of fire. And the Pope, during his reflection with the new cardinals, he talked about fire, and it was like having the fire of your love for the church, right? And it was very beautiful reflection. It was wonderful to see this very unique event, and to be so close was an immense blessing for me.
And I think a lot of times we can see like all this formalities of the Vatican, and it can kind of seem distant. We can think, oh, that cardinal, like he lives in a palace somewhere, and like he's just like it's almost like a job promotion from like whatever, some plebe to like CFO or something. But it's not like that, because basically it's like, okay, you're taking on this red habit, this red uniform, this red robe, not as a promotion in the sense of like this worldly climbing a ladder to like a greater paycheck. It's, hey, are you willing, like you said, to give your life to the point of shedding blood if necessary for the church, for the faith, for the truths that we defend as a Catholic Church? And then that person saying yes receives the beretta and receives the red robe or the uniform. I think that's so powerful. When we see a cardinal, you're looking at someone who's willing and ready to become a martyr for the church. It's like, so my respects for those men that have said yes to that huge call. It's not just, it is honor. It's an honor, obviously, for their hard work that they've already done, but it's also a calling to a greater commitment and greater self-giving to the church, which is awesome.
At the end of the ceremony, I had the privilege of greeting Cardinal Verges, who's a legionary. He's worked in the Vatican for a long time. He's from Spain. And I told him, it's like, Your Eminence, or I don't know if I said father, just because he's a legionary. He's like, he's a normal.
Our brother.
Yeah. And I said, like, well, obviously you haven't looked for this honor, because actually this legionary cardinal, he didn't even want to be a bishop. He worked in the Vatican, and he told the Pope when he was promoted in the Vatican, and he asked the Pope not to make him a bishop. And the Pope was like, okay. But then afterwards, the Pope said, well, actually, yeah, you're going to be a bishop. And he wrote like this letter, a public letter, and said, you're going to do this. Huh. And I want you to be a bishop for these reasons. And so I knew that he never looked for any of these things.
Pope twisted his arm. Like, you can't really say no to that. Once a Pope writes a public letter, it's like...
Exactly. And then what Cardinal Verges told me was really beautiful. He said that the Pope told me, he said, thank you for accepting this responsibility, and thank you for not desiring it. I thought that was so beautiful.
Wow.
Like he's never desired this. He's never looked for it. But it's just now this responsibility that's on his shoulders, right? And of course, some people say, oh, like people want to look important, or careerism in the church, and you get to wear these nice fancy robes, and people like have deference to you. But how long does that really last? I mean, maybe like the first week, and afterwards it's like you need to work hard. You have a big responsibility. It's a burden, and so we need to pray for these people.
And in 2022, I also think just like the church isn't like, popular and famous and like maybe like it used to be. Like it's almost a target on your back. Like you're gonna receive a lot of complaints. You're gonna be attacked. So we need to pray for our cardinals too. It's being completely 100% obvious that, hey, I represent all that the church teaches, and again, I'm willing to lay down my life for it, for the church and for Christ's mystical body. So. Like all that pomp and circumstance that is probably there. I also had a very cool encounter with our bishop here in Raleigh, and he was saying, like the Pope Francis, like one of the beautiful things that has happened, just like culture of the Vatican. He said it's very different now. Like a lot of people are just kind of more down to earth, more friendly, closer. Because it's kind of like that's Pope Francis. Like what he kind of radiates is like he's pastor of a parish. It's just that parish is the whole world. But like, just like a parish priest who is like the spiritual father and brings people close and is close to his parishioners, that's sort of like been transmitted and injected into like the life of the Vatican. And I thought that was so cool these are men that want to be close to their flock. And it's not about like, the perks that come with it. It's the mission that you're engaging upon, that you're committing to. Anyways, that's so exciting that we have our first legionary cardinal. We've got to pray for him. Pray for all of our new cardinals. How many new cardinals were there? Made
20
okay.
All.
Yeah. So we keep them in our prayers for sure. Oh, that's so exciting, Belanger. Love it.
That's right. So lately, Brother Luke, this thought has been going through my mind. Ain't no, never no, no dumb questions.
Ain't no, never no, no dumb questions. So let's hit that high note to get our blood flowing. So our episode today is called No Dumb Questions, ? Because you always hear that, like, there's no dumb question. Only dumb question is a question you don't ask, and like different forms of that, of those wise sage phrases. And but is there really no dumb question, Brother Andrew?
Well, I thought that there was a dumb question not too long ago. So this month, I've been almost exclusively praying with one passage from the gospel. Sometimes I come across a passage in my prayer that just really speaks to me, and I just like stay there for several weeks. So I've been with this passage for 3 weeks. I think I'm already done. I think I've already milked all of the udders enough. And so I'm going to go on to a new one. But there was this passage from the Gospel of Matthew, Gospel of Matthew, chapter 14, where Jesus walks on the water, right? It's a famous passage. We all know about it, right? Jesus starts walking on the water. The disciples are sort of being tossed about by the waves and the winds. They think he's a ghost. And he's like, don't be afraid, it's me. And then Peter's like, okay, if it's you, command me to come to the water. And the next line is the one that's been hitting me. Jesus said, come. And Peter began to walk on the water towards Jesus. So I'll come back to that phrase. That really hit me a lot. But then but then Jesus says later on, after Peter starts sinking, he says, oh, you have little faith. Why did you doubt?
And you thought that was dumb.
That was a dumb question. I'm sorry, Jesus. You know, like, I know you're my creator, but that's a dumb question because it's obvious why he doubted. It's obvious why Peter doubted. He's in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. He's on this first century non-technological dinky little boat that could just capsize, and he's walking on water. He's doing something impossible, and it's scary. It's 4 a.m. in the morning. It's the fourth watch of the night. So, like, come on, just put those things together, you know, Lord. I have all the respect, right? You're my creator. But it's a dumb question. But then you're like, okay, well, why did Jesus ask that? And why would Jesus ask a dumb question? And then I was like, wait a minute. Maybe it's not a dumb question. Maybe his perspective is totally different from our perspective. Like, what do we see? We see the waves, we see the winds, we see the storm, we see the darkness, we see the impossible things that we're not supposed to be able to do. That's our perspective. But what's Jesus' perspective? He's like, I'm the Son of God. I'm the waves and winds recognize my voice, and they will do what I say to tell them to do. He's like, I'm the Alpha and the Omega. I'm the Logos. The whole of the universe was created through my name. That's his perspective.
So who's dumb now? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been thinking. Like, what I thought was a dumb question was actually just him making me change my perspective.
I think a lot of things too, Jesus will say kind of obvious things like I've heard this reflection before. That like Jesus already knows like what's in people's hearts. So but sometimes he'll still ask anyways, like, what do you want me to do for you? Or like to a blind man, well, obviously that I see again, right? Or to a crippled man, like, obviously I want to be healed. Like, what do you wish I do? Well, it's obvious. But Jesus still wants us to ask the dumb question, you know? He wants us somehow, for some reason, and that's what we're going to talk about in our episode, Jesus deals with us in that way. And so, yeah, Brother Andrew, yeah, please continue. But yeah, just it's interesting that there are a lot of dumb questions you could say in the Gospels, and I feel like we're walking a very fine line, like accusing like the eternal word, eternal logos of asking dumb questions. So obviously it's us that need to get on the same page and wavelength as this eternal wisdom, right? And say, okay, well,
literally wavelength, literally.
Actually. So, and that's what we do here at TGIFFF. That's what we've been doing for the last 3 seasons, is asking dumb questions. No, is processing and analyzing how is the Lord speaking to us in our life, but also through Scripture, through our very famous and world-renowned technique, copyrighted and everything, called the
Dunque hermeneutic.
That's right, the Dunque hermeneutic. So let's continue going deeper and hermeneuticizing your experience there with Peter walking on the water. So like, what else, I guess, what other conclusions or like have you seen? Like, how has that spoken to you? Or
Yeah.
did you already milk all the udders for us as well, your listeners? As disgusting as that image is. Continue.
well, you could milk a cat. You could squeeze the juice out of the. You could squeeze the juice out of a bottle. You could.
Even almonds produce milk these days. So
even almond milk,
Yeah.
you could do any type of milk, even wood milk or something. But
anyways,
I think there are no dumb questions and I think some people. And this is kind of funny because sometimes people approach me either in person or online, and they kind of like hesitatingly, and they want to ask a question, and of course my reaction is like, I could answer any question you would. I don't know if I could answer. I could try to help you in any way that I can possible. That's my desire, right? As a shepherd, right? And so there are no questions that should ever bother us. Like, we should ask any question, anything at all of God, because, well, like you said, he already knows it. So he already knows it's in our hearts. So the best thing you can do is to bring it out in front of him, because it's this exercise of both of you recognizing what's there that allows you to go forward together, right? I think that's why Jesus waits. He wants to elicit. He wants to respect our freedom, but he knows that we need to freely offer things to him in order for him to be able to transform it, right? He's not going to do it without our permission, right? And so, but anyways, going back to this question idea, how could there ever be a dumb question if our seeking for more answers is going to lead us to the ultimate truth, to being ultimately united to God, right? So whenever we have thinking about like this question that Jesus asked in the gospel, it's like, it really made me think, like, maybe that's not, there's no way that this is a mistake, because he's God. He thought of this encounter, and this encounter is present for me today. And what it's making me think today is, anything that Jesus asks or says to me is there to push me further somehow, to make me grow, to comfort me, to console me, to give me strength, to heal me. So it doesn't ever make any sense for me to react first and say, like, that's a dumb question, because it's obviously not. But it makes me think, like, wait a minute, why is he asking this? Why is this happening to me? There's got to be something deeper here, because I know that he's God. I know that the waves and winds respond to his voice. I know that there's something deeper here. So what is it? What is it?
And
I know there ain't never no dumb questions.
Because there ain't never no dumb questions. All right, switching it up for y'all out there who might be falling asleep, who might be getting distracted while you're driving. Keep your eyes on the road as you continue listening. And yeah, I was just going to say, like, St. Augustine, I think, said it. He said a lot of awesome things. But how, like, sometimes God won't answer our prayers right away, like the way that we expect it, because he wants our desire to grow, right? And so if you're asking questions and maybe not receiving answers, doesn't mean they're dumb. But even if you are asking dumb questions and not receiving answers, there's a reason. Like, that's already an answer from God, that I'm listening and I have something great in store for you. And on top of that, like, if you turn it around, and you kind of started talking about this, Brother Andrew, there's no dumb. Jesus doesn't ask a dumb question because it's as obvious as it is. He has a pedagogy to why he questions those things, even if it seems obvious, right? To pull something out of us, to pull out this desire, that deep-seated desire that maybe we haven't put words to yet. And sometimes it's important to put words to our desires, to our emotions, to our emotional state and things, and bring that before God. And so in that sense, there's also no dumb, or is there, theme or conversation topic. There's no dumb dialogue with Jesus as long as you're dialoguing with Jesus. And I think that's something that's kind of weird for people, because you can think, oh, prayer is Our Father who art in heaven. Beautiful prayer, amazing prayer. Jesus wrote it, right? Hail Mary, full of grace, another amazing prayer. But you don't have to pray those prayers. You also don't have to pray like Saint Hilarious prayed back in the day. Saint Hilary. Pray. Like, you pray as Brother Andrew, right? Like, have you ever felt like this is kind of dumb, but you just keep going, like in a conversation with God? Brother Andrew, like, has that ever happened to you? I see you looking at stuff on your screen. Are you having technical difficulties? Oh man, Brother Andrew can't hear, so we're just gonna keep going. Do whatever you did before, like you were working on something. We can always edit this out too. But buying time. What I was getting at, and I'm teaching a vocations class at Cardinal Gibbons. And so this is one of the things I wanted to mention on this podcast, is that I get the impression, not from my students, but just like from previous experience, and so I've been trying to transmit that to students, that whatever's on your heart, like whatever might be considered by you or others like a distraction, is actually an opportunity to speak to God, to start a conversation with God that is genuine because it's from your heart. And so let's say, like, I'm in class right now, but I'm really hungry and thinking about lunch. Like, you could talk to God about that. Say, Lord, maybe I should get more out of this class, but all I can think about is my stomach growling. That's a conversation. Let's go with that. Let's run with that. Whatever it might be, like whatever you're nervous about or excited about, doesn't have to be something sacred necessarily to create that sacred space so that God can enter in to our hearts. So I would invite you all to throw out that phrase and vocabulary and say there's nothing too dumb to bring before God. There ain't never no dumb question with Jesus. Can I get an amen?
Amen, brother. I totally agree with that.
Awesome. So you can hear me now. I was just testing to see if you're back with us. And there's a lot of beauty and awesomeness in the church, and everyone has, like, Brother Andrew, I guess you haven't seen that interview of Shia LaBeouf.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Disney actor turned Hollywood actor turned Catholic just recently. It was cool to hear his testimony. So there's over an hour long interview with Bishop Barron on Word on Fire. If you type in any of those words on YouTube, I can't remember the exact title, you'll find it. But I think it's Bishop Barron interviews Shia LaBeouf or whatever. And I just loved hearing him speak about the faith and the Mass. And why? Because he did it with his own language. I feel like that's what we need to do. Like, if we want to walk and journey with God, stop regurgitating and start a conversation. Like just like a conversation you have with a friend. You're not going to use words that you read in the Dickens novel you had to read for your school book report. Like, that's weird. You're going to use common language, colloquial language, inside jokes. Like, that is a beautiful point. If you can get to that kind of relationship with God, you're aiming for that narrow gate to make it to the kingdom of heaven. Like, yeah. I'm done talking for a while. You keep talking. Now you can talk.
I know. I totally subscribe to everything you say.
Hey, subscribe to the podcast.
Subscribe to the podcast. And I also think that we need to look at real life examples of people who are going through, these conversion stories. I think it's so helpful to put faces and concrete images and concrete experiences, right, on these sometimes abstract topics that we talked about, like don't dumb questions, like these existential questions that we have about life that need to be answered, right? We don't have like we have this continual push, this impulse towards the truth, towards fullness of understanding, fullness of knowledge that has to be satisfied eventually. I mean, there's no authentic human desire that is in vain, right? Authentic human desires are meant to be fulfilled partially in this life and fully in the next, right? Even more than fully in the next. And so I also think that there are some questions. One of the things that when I was in philosophy that I really enjoyed is I really enjoyed asking simple questions, right? I think some of the simplest questions are really the best. I remember I was in a philosophy of the natural world class here in philosophy in Rome. And
what color were the
slides? A lot of details. Yeah, all these blue slides with yellow letters. Brother Luke knows all about these.
Traumatized.
Exactly, traumatized. Because it was this professor it was the only style that he had, and he would put a bunch of text up, and it was hard to read, and some of it was in Latin.
Great man, great priest, great.
Yeah, exactly. But
theologian and philosopher, but just like those slides killed me.
Slides were not a good design. So anyways, one day I asked this professor, why is the universe so big? Why is it so big?
Okay.
Like you just like a lot of us we talk about like the origin of the universe, like where did it all come from, where's it all going to go, the Big Bang, the big crunch at the end of time. So people think there's going to be like an opposite Big Bang, everything comes together.
But Andrew, I'm gonna stop you there and just point out that is a dumb question.
That is not a dumb question. Well, why don't you explain?
It's a dumb question.
Why don't you give me your polished answer that satisfies my intellect?
That's the thing. There is no polished answer. There is no answer to that question. Well, scientifically.
Right. Well, scientifically, you can say that it's big because it's constantly expanding, right? We know that the universe is expanding, right?
But why? That's the question, right? Like why?
Right. So people say that because of the Big Bang, right? A lot of people say that. But my question was like, it's just so big. Like, why does it need to be so big? Like if God created the universe, why is it so big? Why?
Yeah, like there almost has to be other living creatures, right? If it's so big, like how can we be the only living like intelligent creatures, right, in the whole universe?
That's another question, right? But the answer he gave me. As a priest, he gave it to me. He didn't give it to me as a scientist. He said, as a priest, I think it's so big because God just wants us to see how majestic he is and how beautiful and ordered he is and how all of this is for us, right?
La grandezza di Dio.
La grandezza di Dio. Exactly. The greatness of God, right? God's majesty and greatness. So there are no dumb questions, and also simple questions are often the ones most worth answering. There's one of our patrons, like our patron Bishop Barron. I think he needs to like pay us or something.
Well, like it's in the works now that we're stateside. Like I'm working on like building that relationship, continuing to build that relationship. Let's say
exactly, continuing, and then we'll eventually merge with Word on Fire.
Yeah, we're not sure who's going to buy who, but yeah.
Exactly, yeah, it's kind of a toss up, but but one of the cool, if anybody wants to go down like these questions theme, go and look up Q&A with Bishop Barron with kids. The kids ask the best questions. They ask the best questions. They ask really simple ones, and they're always the most theologically profound ones. Because who cares, like, if, I don't know, like, in the moment of Mary's conception, like 5 minutes before, like, there was like the Holy Spirit came down, and it was like this specific way that it proceeded from the Father in the womb of Saint Anne, and then like this, and like. That's not that. The important thing is that she's conceived without sin, right?
Yeah, and like how to philosophically explain how like Jesus, who is God and who like already knows everything, grew in knowledge. Like those are interesting questions, but like it is an interesting question. But I'm just saying, like sometimes in theology we got into these like very nitty gritty, like comparing the different ways of explaining how that's possible, and like, anyways, yeah, there's a lot of that happening in theology.
But yeah, exactly. The point is that we have a questioning mind, an inquisitive mind, and so we can't ever think that anything that we ask is offensive or anything like even like the way you feel. Like you feel angry, you feel frustrated, or you don't like something that the church teaches. You don't like the demands that the church makes on you in sexuality, in contraception, in homosexuality. You don't like the demands that the church makes on the death penalty, or the demanding nature of the church's preferential treatment of the poor, and how demanding that should be on those who are blessed with material wealth, right? There really should never be an area in our lives where we feel like totally at comfort and peace, right? Because Christ demands a lot of us. I mean, we should be at peace because he's with us and he loves us and we love him, right? But it's also, he's always constantly challenging us.
Yes.
And whenever we feel challenged that way, or whenever we don't understand, we should always bring that question to either somebody who knows more than I do, or at least to prayer, because there ain't no, never no dumb questions.
Ain't no, never no dumb questions. Yeah. Yeah. So this has been hopefully helpful for all of you listening to think that I can talk to God about anything. Not only can you Like that's exactly what he wants to talk about. Like what is on your heart, and start with those simple questions, because that should be the foundation of all. Like even what I was saying before, like the theological questions are all important and all interesting and all good, but don't lose track of those simple truths of our faith, right? That just God loves you. Like that is enough to keep you searching and seeking God for all the days of your life here on this earth. Like, and there are theological questions that, as interesting as they are, maybe they're never gonna be as essential as those simple truths, like you're saying, like with those kids that they'll ask you questions. You can bring wherever you are, at whatever stage of life that you are, whatever walk of life that you are. And then also maybe like thinking just apostolically, like applying this to our life. Dunque, therefore, how does this No Dumb Questions episode relate to my dealings with other people? Like I want to bring other people to the faith. Don't start way up here if the person's here, right? It's always meeting people where they're at. And that's what God does for us. And so obviously that same way that he deals with us and relates to us should be the way that we deal with other people. Never thinking we're better, or that I know more. Like I have my degree from the Regina Apostolorum Pontifical University, so please step aside. Like all of that is so I can serve you better, whoever you are, child of God.
Yeah, and Father, let me interrupt you here because you made a really good point.
I did?
Yeah, I'm surprised, but
Me
it actually...
too.
You said... So, folks, this is really important that Father said. So, like, the way that God relates to us and acts to us is the way that we should relate to others and act with other people. There's a really beautiful point that Pope Francis repeats a lot, over and over and over again. He always talks about God's closeness, God's tenderness, and God's mercy. Like these are sort of three words that he repeats over and over again. And he calls it, in Italian, lo stile di Dio. God's style.
Bello.
God's style. And so like the way that he acts with us should be the same way that we act. It's like a pattern for us.
Yeah.
And so just like he's merciful with us, compassionate, tender, he's close, that's how we should be with other people. And so when people have questions, and they see us sort of as maybe being able to answer that, or even if they're not interested in asking questions, but maybe there's a way that we can get them to ask questions. Maybe we can ask the question, right? We need to go out into the deep. We need to walk on these waters, right? And circling back to this phrase that I said I was going to come back to, it's from Matthew 14. I think it's verse 29. I was just struck how when Jesus says, "Come," and Peter began to walk on the water towards Jesus, like Peter starts to do something that's impossible. He can't walk on the water. You can't do that. That's against the physical laws of the universe. You can't. It's impossible. It can't even be an option on the table. But he does it because, well, one, Jesus commands him to. And two, where's he walking to? He's walking to Jesus. His eyes are on Jesus. He's keeping his eyes on Jesus. And everybody knows, of course, he takes his eyes off Jesus. He starts to sink. We all know that. But in positive terms, you keep your eyes on Jesus, then you can do anything. You don't have to be complex and difficult and get into these mental games. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know what my relative is going to say. I don't know if I have the strength, my talents. Oof, look at Jesus. Take steps one day at a time. You can do the impossible.
Yes.
That should be this fire that gives us strength, right?
And I think the people that have suffered the most in their lives, but they've suffered with God and with faith, it's amazing how they begin to see how God, nothing is impossible for God, but really, literally in my life. And I'm always so impressed by when you speak to those people, or you hear those testimonies of people that have suffered. I just met a deacon of our diocese the other day, and with a big smile, it came up in a conversation, and he's like, you know what, God is so good to me. And I know, maybe not everyone would agree with that because this happened. He's lost loved ones. He's had, all these crazy sicknesses, all these things. But, literally a huge, genuine smile on his face from the moment of sacristy before Mass, all the way during Mass, after Mass, greeting the people as they're leaving the church. You can just tell this guy is just, a bundle of joy. And it's not because it's all butterflies and paella, as we said in our last season, right? Life is going to hand us difficult things, but there's going to be big waves and wind that can knock us off course. Keep your eyes fixed on Christ. Continue walking. You can walk on water. Amen.
Amen. Well, I think that wraps up today's episode. So, folks, there ain't no, never, no dumb questions.
Ain't no, never, no dumb question at TGIF. And remember, folks, we do not ever, never, ain't no, never just do. We.
Dunque.
God bless.
What was that? What was that?
TGIFF.
What was that?
Two brothers in Rome.
What was that? What was that?
TGIFF.
What was that?
It's a double F, not a singular F.
TGIFF. Instagram is TGIFF.podsquad. Facebook, Instagram,
Internet.
all over.